That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Old Henry, directed by Potsy Ponciroli, that premiered out of competition at the 2021 Venice Film Festival and is being released October 1st, 2021, courtesy of Shout Studios.
The director?
Potsy.
What do we know from this person?
Directed a film called Super Zeros back in 2012, I didn't see, and a television series called Still the King, which I think I remember seeing advertised, but I never watched.
All right. The basic story is there is a man on the run. Oh, it's set in like the late 1800s?
It's set in 1906 Oklahoma Territory.
Okay. So there's a man on the run. He's running from a group of three men who look like they're law enforcement. The leader of this group is played by Stephen Dorff. Mm-hmm. Okay. The man who's running, he's been injured. So his
name's Curry.
Like chicken curry?
Mm-hmm.
So Curry is out in these the field, the farmland, wherever, injured, when Tim Blake Nelson's character,
Henry.
Oh, that's Henry. I did watch this movie. Henry, played by Tim Blake Nelson, and his son,
Wyatt,
come upon this chicken curry. All right. They offer to take him in, like, to help him. They also see that he has a gun and a satchel filled with money. Mm-hmm. So they're a little suspicious of him, but whatever. They tie his ass down, and they try to get him on the mend. Okay. Stephen Dorff and his two men are looking for chicken curry. They do approach Henry's home, and Henry plays it off like, I don't know who you're talking about, he's not here. And Stephen Dorff is like, okay, we'll see. So Stephen Dorff sends one of his men to go check, and it ends violently, meaning that person gets killed. So now Stephen Dorff and like a bunch of other men, I don't know where they came from, because there were like 10 of them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where these other 8 people came from. But they go, Tim Blake Nelson's brother-in-law, who lives in the area.
Al. Played by Trace Adkins.
Who you said's a country singer.
Yeah. I don't know any of his music, but I do know.
Who's the country singer who used the N-word and they kicked him off SNL? That's not that man. Probably not.
Was that recent?
That was like a year ago?
Oh.
Anyway.
Helen Keller.
They snatch up Al with the idea that they're going to use him as like bait to get Henry to like tell them where this chicken curry is. Okay. They threaten to kill Al, and right before they do, Al says, y'all don't know what you're about to get into fucking with my brother-in-law. And then they kill Al. And then we find out the gag is Henry is Billy the Kid. And he fucks everybody up. Mm-hmm. He kills all of them.
Sure does.
The end.
The end, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought this story felt, it feels very, what was the word I used?
Dry.
This movie's dry.
It is dry.
Okay, first off, I know who Billy the Kid is in the sense that I know that that's like a historical figure who was like a bandit in old-timey times.
Like the 1880s.
Okay, but like that's the extent of my knowledge of Billy the Kid. So if a person has no idea who Billy the Kid is, I feel like that entire plot point is lost on them. It is made clear that like, because we see newspaper articles or clippings and like that this person was involved in like robberies and murders. And then Henry keeps telling his son, like, I've done a lot of things you don't even know about, like, and he's very protective of his son and now seems to be very like moral. He's very religious and has all these ideals. So it would make sense that whomever Billy the Kid was, this is the person who did bad things and they're trying to like fly like the straight and narrow.
Right, but except it doesn't really make sense that I understand that sentiment of like a Billy the Kid going straight, but then you kind of also in this environment leave your progeny to be vulnerable by not even allowing them to defend themselves. Because I feel like this is
Well, what you're explaining is that Henry doesn't. What's the kid's name? Wyatt.
Wyatt.
Henry is like very opposed to Wyatt even knowing how to handle a gun.
Yeah.
So, like you said, yeah, you leave your kid vulnerable if you're like this notorious badass who at any moment could be taken out. Why would you set your kid up? Well, here, let me go down my notes. I only have a few. The first one is the son, Wyatt. The actor playing him,
Gavin Lewis.
he's too attractive. Because, I mean, Tim Blake Nelson looks like something out of Men in Black. And then you have this kid who's very like, he's like I don't know. He's like a very pretty boy. Like,
He looks and acts too modern.
well, that too. He seems like this very, like, yeah, he seems like some fey kid in like Silver Lake in like 2021. Right?
Like,
So he just seems so out of place. And then it's like, what the hell did the mom look like?
Yeah.
Who did Tim Blake Nelson get pregnant? That
yeah.
this like lesbian son of his is like, I just don't get it. This kid is too cute to be the son. There's a scene where Henry is trying to remove like a bullet from Chicken Curry's wound. Mm-hmm. And someone else was in the room with us for that scene watching it. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was funny because the sound effects, like the sound editing of that scene, are so much more elevated and make it seem so much more gruesome than the visual.
Sure.
Because really it's almost like that little game kids play called Operation. Mm-hmm. It's just him trying to pull out this bullet from like a wound. But the wound doesn't look that gruesome. And it's not like he's digging in there and it's just the sound make it seem so intense. I thought that was kind of lame.
He's the character that puts it together beforehand because he had a run-in with Billy the Kid as a child. The night I think that Billy the Kid supposedly was shot and killed.
Oh, that's right. The film opens with that shot of like we see Billy the Kid in like a fire and then some kid witnessing this person. And then we find out that Chicken Curry experienced Billy the Kid. So he already knows.
Scott Haze is playing Curry, he was in Child of God a few years ago, directed by James Franco. There were all those rumors about him as James Franco's roommate. Do you remember
like he
that?
might be a homosexual.
Like that was that actor about that. But recently he's been in Minari. He was also had a small part in the first Venom. I thought he was fine.
I was thinking Monarchy. There's a movie called Cop Shop, which we reviewed, and I felt like this movie is like an old-timey version of Cop Shop. Because you have this random person sort of like seeking refuge because they're being chased by a bad guy because they've done something bad. And then you have this like good person. So in Cop Shop, it's that black female actor who I thought was really good. Like trying to help him, which is what Tim Blake Nelson's character is doing. And then ultimately, like, you know, everyone gets fucked up. But
it has a lot of things that are like a lot of stories kind of start like that.
Sure.
Because this was giving me a vibe of like Larry McMurtry meets The Beguiled, which are both things I really like Lonesome Dove. The Beguiled is my favorite Don Siegel film, by the way. But it doesn't quite go that way, and it does have very long stretches of dry spells.
Okay, well, speaking of that, you know, the film culminates with this final showdown.
Which is fine. I like that well enough.
Well, yes, when it finally gets going, but it takes forever because you think like if these people were really out here to wreck shop, it takes them a very long time to start shooting. It's just like we're all staring at each other, and we know we all have guns, and we know we're gonna shoot, and they're just like waiting. I don't know. I don't know how people got down back in the early 1900s, but it felt very delayed on top of a film that was already kind of dry. So it's really only the last 10 minutes that like liven up.
I agree.
And I did think that, like you said, I do think that works very well once we get to it. Because watching Tim Blake Nelson out here just shooting everybody, it was cute.
Cute.
Well, because, you know, like you had said earlier when we were talking about it, I think, you know, initially I thought, God, everyone is a terrible shot until they're not. But then, of course, guns back then weren't, you know, they didn't operate as well as they do now. So it's just kind of funny watching these people like just shoot, like they're just shooting each other like in like open air. Like they're not really hiding and no one lands a bullet. I think that's kind of, I mean, it's cute / funny.
I did like Tim Blake Nelson in this, but I mean he's a wonderful character actor in everything he does, and a director in his own right. But I thought this was a fine role for him. I like Stephen Dorff. The many phases of Stephen Dorff. I always think of either him as a child in The Gate or his erect penis in Lee Daniels' Shadowboxer, like Stephen, or in that Britney Spears music video. Or in Blade, like Stephen Dorff's all over my head all the time every time I see him. But I thought he was fine as this faux sheriff that is providing a little bit of menace. And Trace Adkins I also kind of like because I didn't even realize that was him until after we finished.
Oh, I don't have any other notes. This movie was all right to me. I felt it was very dry. I had a hard time paying attention.
I know you did. I think a good point being, if you don't know anything about Billy the Kid, it might kind of make you feel even more detached from this. But again, there are other films that have dealt with that. Because when Billy the Kid was shot and presumably killed, and I think in 1881, rumors did persist for years afterwards that he was still alive and that his sheriff friend, Pat Garrett, allowed that to be faked. In fact, there's a really great film from 1973 directed by Sam Peckinpah called Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, starring James Coburn and Chris Christopherson, that I would say is requisite viewing if you're interested in this period and these people at all. Chris Christopherson's another one. I always think of that joke in 30 Rock where, isn't it, Tina Fey says she's turned on by the homeless looking man that looks like Chris Christopherson.
Oh, I don't recall.
Your memory.
What would you give this film?
I think 2.5 out of 5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Thank you.